Today we're going to talk about dividing rational numbers with fractions. Reciprocal is an important vocabulary word that we need to understand. One of the two numbers whose product is 1 is also called a multiplicative inverse. So if we have the number 3 and we want to know what its reciprocal would be, we write 3 as a fraction, 3 over 1, and then the reciprocal would be 1 over 3. When we multiply that, we would get 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 3 is 3. And so we would get 3 over 3, which equals 1. When we divide signed fractions, we have to remember that we must change the mixed numbers to an improper fraction. You will keep the first fraction the same. You will change division to multiplication, and you will find the reciprocal of the fraction that's after the multiplication sign. You will flip it. Keep, change, flip is often used to help us remember these steps. Then you will multiply the numerators and multiply the denominators and simplify if needed. We have to make sure we know whether or not our answer is going to be positive or negative. We can use ONEP. We count the number of negative signs. If there are an odd number of negative signs, then the answer will be negative. If there's an even number of negative signs, the answer will be positive. Quotients can have negative signs in different places. Are the rational numbers 12 over negative 4, negative 12 over 4, and negative 12 over 4 equivalent? So let's look at this. 12 divided by negative 4 would be negative 3. Negative 12 divided by 4 would be negative 3. And 12 divided by 4 would be 3, and then it would be negative. So are they equivalent? The answer is yes. Negative p over q is equal to negative p over q is also equal to p over negative q, for q cannot be 0. Let's write the complex fraction as division. 7 over 10 over negative 1 over 5. Remember, the fraction bar is division, so we're going to write 7 over 10 divided by a negative 1 over 5. Remember, we are going to be dividing our fractions. So we're going to keep, change, flip. The first fraction we will keep the same, 7 over 10. The division sign will be changed to multiplication. And the second fraction will be flipped to its reciprocal. Negative 1 over 5 becomes negative 5 over 1. Then we will multiply. Top times the top, 7 minus 5 is 35. Bottom times the bottom, 10 times 1 is 10. Remember, it's going to be negative, and we're going to need to simplify. I want to show you a different way that you can do it so that you will not have to simplify. Well, you would simplify, but you would simplify before you multiplied. We can simplify the 5 and the 10. 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 10 divided by 5 is 2. So then when we multiply, we get 7 times 1 is 7. And then when we multiply the bottom, we get 2 times 1 is 2. And we need to remember that it is negative. You can also see that what we did here would be, this could look as the simplification of taking out the dividing both the top and the bottom by 5, which is dividing by 1. So we're doing the same thing to the numerator that we're doing to the denominator. We still need to simplify, so we are going to divide 7 divided by 2. 2 goes into 7 3 times. 3 times 2 is 6. We're going to subtract and get a 1. We're going to bring that remainder up to be our numerator, and our denominator is not going to change. So our final answer is going to be negative 3 1/2. And let me show you that the same thing would happen if we did 35 divided by 10. 10 goes into 35 3 times. 3 times 10 is 30. Subtract and get 5. Bring your numerator up, and you have 5 over 10. And then you can divide numerator and denominator both by 5. And so you would get 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. That would be 3. And remember, our answer is going to be a negative. So there are several ways that you can do that. I would suggest that you simplify before you multiply because your numbers are smaller, and so it will be easier. But you do not have to do that. You can multiply top times top, bottom times the bottom, and simplify later. It's your choice. We have a little phrase to remind us what to do. Dividing fractions. Don't be shy. Flip the second one over and multiply. So number one, we need to remember we have mixed numbers. And when we are dividing and multiplying, we have to change our mixed numbers to improper fractions. So let's review how to do that. We are going to take our denominator and multiply it by our whole number and then add our numerator. So we get 5 times 3 is 15 plus 1 is 16. And our denominator is going to stay the same. Remember, we often call this MAD to remind us that we multiply, add, denominator stays the same. Then we have our division. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3, so that is 3 over 2. And remember that that is negative. I see one negative sign in this problem. I know that 1 is odd, so my answer is going to be negative. Now I'm ready to divide fractions. Don't be shy. Flip the second one over and multiply. The first fraction stays the same, 16 over 3. The division changes to multiplication, and you use the reciprocal of the second fraction. You flip it, and so negative 3 over 2 becomes negative 2 over 3. Now we're ready to multiply the top times the top. 16 times 2 is 32, and the bottom times the bottom. 3 times 3 is 9. And remember, it's negative. Now we need to simplify by doing top in, bottom out. 32 divided by 9. 9 goes into 32. 3 times 9 is 27. Then when we subtract, we get 5. Our numerator is 5, our denominator is 9, and remember our answer is negative. So our final answer is negative 3 and 5 over 9. Remember, if you ever need to pause the video, slow down to watch the steps, feel free to do so. I'm going to erase that and move on to the next one. Number 2, negative 3/8 divided by 3 over 4. I count one negative, so I know my answer is going to be negative. Dividing fractions, don't be shy. Flip the second one over and multiply. Keep the first fraction, negative 3 over 8. Change the division to multiplication. Use the reciprocal of the second fraction, 4 over 3. I'm going to simplify before I multiply. I see here that I can divide both of these numbers by a 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 3 divided by 3 is 1. I can also simplify here. Both of these numbers have a factor of 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So now I'm ready to multiply. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 1 is 2. And remember, our answer was negative. So our answer is negative 1 over 2. Let's look at number 3. I see 2 negative symbols, so I know that my answer is going to be positive. I have a mixed number. I have to change it to an improper fraction. 4 times 6 is 24, plus 1 is 25. Denominator will stay the same. Divide, negative 1 over 3. I suggest that you change your mixed numbers to improper, and then in the next step, do your keep, change, flip. If you're trying to do it all at once, you might do it incorrectly by accident. So I'm going to keep my first fraction, negative 25 over 6. My division is going to become multiplication. My negative 1/3 is going to become negative 3 over 1. I am ready to simplify. I can divide. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So I end up with 25 times 1 is 25. 2 times 1 is 2. And remember, 2 negatives make a positive, so our answer is positive. I'm going to need to simplify, so I need to divide. 25 divided by 2. 2 goes into 2 once. 1 times 2 is 2. Subtract and get a 0. Bring down the 5. 2 goes into 5 twice. 2 times 2 is 4. Subtract and get a remainder of 1. And remember, we're going to bring our numerator up. Our remainder is going to come up and become our numerator. And we get 12.5. And it is positive. Burger Barn has 46 2/3 pounds of ground beef. How many 1/3 pound burgers can be made using all the ground beef? So we're going to take our total amount of ground beef, and I'm going to change colors. We're going to take our total amount of ground beef, and we're going to divide it by 1/3 to find out how many 1/3 pound burgers we can have. We are going to have to change our mixed number into an improper fraction. So I'm going to need to multiply 46 times 3. I'm going to go over to the side and do that. 46 times 3. 6 times 3 is 18. Carry the 1. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 1 is 13, so I get 138. And remember, I need to add my 2, so I'm going to have 140, and my denominator is going to stay the same. It's going to be 3. Okay? Then I'm going to divide by 1/3. Now I'm ready to divide fractions. Don't be shy. Flip the second one over and multiply. The first fraction will stay the same, 140 over 3. Division becomes multiplication. The 1/3 becomes 3 over 1. I see that I can cancel my 3's. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 3 divided by 3 is 1. Top times the top is 140. Bottom times the bottom. 1 times 1 is 1. So the answer is 140 1/3 pound burgers can be made with the amount of meat that we have.